Good
morning.
morning. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Hey,
Good.
Alice.
It's 9 a.m. for me, but I think it's 6 a.m. for you.
It's okay. When do you get up in the morning?
On a Saturday, I slept in until 6:30 today. Can you believe it?
I can't believe it. I think everybody should.
Except you. You don't get to sleep until 6:30.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't mind. I sleep in almost every day, but I stay up really late too. So I don't know. It kind of balances each other. It's all right because on the East Coast it's 10 a.m. So I feel like this is why we talk about the time, but this is the best time. So if you're tuning in, tell us how you're doing. Oh wow, and it's evening in Australia. Hey Michael, good to see you.
Michael's one of my good friends. I'm excited to see him here. We should have him on as a guest sometime. So
we should. I feel like that's how I know him. I saw him with you on something.
Well, we were doing those Microsoft webinars, and Michael and I co-hosted a webinar together on SEL using Microsoft Teams.
That's right.
And so many great things about Microsoft Teams. So I love how it just really focuses on interactions, relationships, as school should be. So
for sure. And our guest today is all about Microsoft, so we're going to bring her up in just a second.
I think she's all about Microsoft. I mean, she is super accomplished. I mean, yeah, you could say that I'm all about Google, but that's not really true. Like, I'm really about kids, student-centered, and using technology smartly to better pedagogy, not just to use technology. And I love PowerPoint and Microsoft Teams, and let's not pigeonhole. Just saying.
Yeah, well, I wasn't pigeonholing her or anything, but she's going to be talking about Microsoft stuff, so it was just, a natural segue. But thanks. Yeah. Woohoo. But anyway, hey, let's go ahead and bring her up so that she's not. Oh, wait. First, well, do we want to bring her up or do you want to talk about your Schoolitics?
No, bring her up.
All right. Okay.
Me.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Victoria.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning from Seattle.
Tell us your best part of your week.
Well, it was my wife's birthday on Tuesday, so she turned 31 on April 6th.
She's so young.
So we went to her favorite restaurant and had drinks and food.
Happy birthday, Courtney.
Yes, thank you. Well, she's actually, because ironically, because I'm an early riser, she's really not, but she usually gets up on the weekends to do lots of different types of things. But she's not here right now because, I've been tweeting about it on social media and whatnot. But because she's in nursing school, she's got like a couple things that she's working out with her new job. So something interesting, because as educators, we all know, right? Like when you student teach, it's kind of like an unpaid internship. In the medical world, they have clinicals, which is like student teaching. But if you get a job, then they're like, okay, well, then you don't have to do clinicals because you're learning on the go and you get paid. So that's kind of like a neat concept. And, it's almost like if you were student teaching, right? Then if you get a subbing position, then you no longer have to do student teaching and you're just a sub.
We have that. It's not for subbing. If you get hired, you can get an intern. This is what I did.
Cool.
I was hired under contract. So I got hired and then I started my credential and my whole
cool.
was under contract. So I didn't do official student teaching. They did pair me up. So one period I was co-teaching with another teacher and it was really awkward because we were teaching two different topics.
Got it.
At the same time. So we do that in the education field.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Maybe I just haven't seen it because I did go like the college, the student teaching, like I didn't get an alt cert. But I think it's really neat that she gets the chance to work and learn on the go. So she just got a job actually 5 minutes from the school that I work at, which is really exciting because we can carpool and we can have lunch together. But I'm rambling at this point, but that's where she is right now. And my dog is usually here with me, but he is still sleeping.
Where's Ren?
Yeah. He's still sleeping. Yeah. He's like, it's too early. I think I'm just going to stay asleep, but he'll probably pop up later. He usually gets up around this time.
That's awesome. Did you put an outfit on him today?
I did. He actually got a new outfit yesterday. He has a mint green hoodie. And it actually kills me because, with hoodies, like the pockets are like on the front of the sweatshirt. But because he's a dog, his is on the back. So it's kind of interesting because it's not functional. It's just for fashion. but he loves it. Like he was so cozy last night.
So I have a peachy, and of course, Victoria, because you and your wife are just so young, have no idea what I'm talking about. But I have a peachy sweatshirt, and I posted myself wearing that the other day. And then one of the awesome teachers that I teach with put a pile of these in my box this week. Shout out to Tammy. This like made my week. She also put me a nice note saying how awesome I am. So that was super cool.
Awesome.
But anyone who grew up in the 80s, this is like, I know Melody's also like, what the heck is that? I know it was because
I don't know what it is, but it looks cool.
But for those of us who went to school in the 80s, this was the ultimate. So now I have them in a couple of colors, although it's classic in the manila. So
cool, nice. Again, no idea what it is, but it looks really cool. So that's awesome.
Anyway, if I can find one for your little dog too. Hey, how are you?
Yes.
My friend Peru. I'm looking forward to someday being able to go back to Peru. I used to go every year, and obviously last year I didn't get to go, and the situation there is not great. They don't have a lot of the vaccine distribution like we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of vaccine, I'm like, I know this is coffee talk, but I'm on like full water because I got the vaccine about 2 days ago, and man, did it knock the wind out of my sail. Like, I don't think I've ever felt this bad before. I couldn't move. Like, so I posted and I was like, I think that this is par for the course, but does anybody have any suggestions? And I got a lot of great feedback on just lots of water, you know, even if it hurts, move your arm a little bit, get up a lot and move around. So I am trying my best, and I feel better today than I did yesterday. But yeah, yesterday was rough. Yesterday was rough.
My first dose was awful too. Like it was, I felt like I had the flu for like a week. My second dose, I was super, super tired, but I thought it was going to be worse because I had heard that the second dose was way worse than the first. But there's a group of us that the first was really bad and the second wasn't super. I just got really tired. So, but but I feel better now that I have both doses. I feel like
that's good.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Dave, I need to send Dave Burgess some peachy folders. He needs.
It's Dave. See,
I'm like, find some other ones to send to my friend Dave. Which, by the way, if no one has read Teach Like a Pirate, I know that you're living under a rock, so please go get it. It is one of the best books ever. Dave Burgess, Teach Like a Pirate. I'm going to put that down here.
I'm wondering if those folders are like the Lisa Frank folders of like the late 90s, early 2000s that I grew up with.
Lisa Frank was in the 80s too, because I had a Trapper Keeper that was Lisa Frank. Yeah, I love Lisa Frank.
So hey, speaking of Dave Burgess, I have a new book coming out. I should probably mention that. Dave Burgess publishes my books, and I'm going to have a book coming out about Jamboard. And we had a meeting with the publisher. We are old, Dave, I know. And I hang out with these like young people who are very accomplished. I'm like, I need to
Alice Mel, I agree. I'm like, I got to look up these folders because I don't know what Alice Keeler is talking about right now.
So hopefully my Jamboard book co-wrote with Kim and Tina will come out in the next couple of months. The editor is a wizard. I am very glad for Sal.
Awesome.
And your new book is on Jamboards.
Google Jamboard.
Yeah.
A lot of jams.
Yeah. We've been experimenting with that a lot at my school site just for so for transparency, right? We're in Seattle. We're just now beginning to go hybrid next week. So we've been remote all year. So it's been kind of difficult to get folks to collaborate, not because they don't want to, but because we're looking for different platforms that can help. So Jamboard, I think, has been just so instrumental in that. That's really exciting that there's a whole book on it because I feel like I get educators asking me, what's Jamboard? What do I do with it? So that'll be a really cool resource.
I'll send you a link to preview it so you can give me comments that won't matter because it's already gone to the editor.
Well, I'd still love a preview.
You know, the best is when it's already in print on paper. People are like, there's a typo. I'm like, it is printed.
Right.
Well, that's a good question because your book is like has a million things to do with Jamboard. So, what does everybody who's watching? What do y'all do with your Jamboard? What's your favorite thing?
Yeah,
Let us know.
What do you do with your Jamboard? Let me find what I made recently. I'm really obviously a super fan of Open Middle, and I made one for Open Middle. So I'm gonna go find that. It'll take me a second.
And Victoria, you have a book coming out. Do you know the timeline of it yet?
I do not. So I'm going through the process because I had to like go back into Canvas for EduMatch. There was an issue with my password because 2020, 2021. But I don't have a date yet, but that is really exciting because mine's less content like pedagogy and more like, here's all the microaggressions that I faced as a Black woman in education. And, it's for leaders and educators to just kind of look at this and say, how can we enact systemic change, right? How can we make sure that everybody is loved and supported in schools? So that is the topic of my book. Hopefully I'll be able
so excited.
Yeah.
All right. So Alice, what are we looking at here?
Yeah.
Your Open Middle?
Well, yeah, Open Middle. We should screen share. Let me I have one that is a copy. And so I will go ahead and screen share it. Share my screen. We're going to do this window and it's over here. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there we go.
In middle, it's like whenever anyone says to me, I'm not good at math, of course you're good at math. Thinking is fun. Figuring something out feels good. And that's why Open Middle is so great. It's DOK Level 2 and DOK Level 3 math problems that are really my hallmark of a good math problem is, I'm not sure. Let me think about it. And so with Open Middle, you don't know what the first step is. And a lot of times they're this puzzle type problem where you drag the digits 1 through 9 into the boxes, and then you strategize, how do you get this to work? And so we are having the students do tax and discount. So I have one for tax and one for discount. And really the only difference here is a plus versus a minus sign. But you'll notice that I have a bunch of frames. So when I set up a Open Middle for students, and I got this from Robert Kaplinski, who is the founder of Open Middle, is that you want to be like, here's your first attempt. Now here's your second attempt. Now here's your third attempt. Like the graphic organizer specifically says, here's all of your attempts. And in an effort to realize that like, you're not supposed to know what to do the first time, right? You're supposed to think about it, then strategize, get some feedback from yourself that didn't work. Okay, what will I try instead? And really setting up those mindsets. So
that's really neat. I like that.
I like it too. How are your students responding to it?
Yeah.
Whenever I give students a higher DOK level problem, I get much better engagement. It's DOK 1 can be stressful because you're supposed to know what to do. You're supposed to get the right answer. And that's just anxiety producing for me. And so when I put up there something like, we don't know, I'm like, I don't know either. Like, what do you think? What do you notice? What do you observe? And there's no right answer to how to get started. And we have great conversations. And so I find it's much better any day that I start my lesson with a higher DOK. I'm totally against the idea that depth of knowledge is a ladder. You don't start with DOK 1 and go to 2 and then go to 3. I a lot of times like to start with a 3 and like, I don't know, what information do we need to know to do this? And so then suddenly it's important to learn it because I need it for this problem. So it kind of models the just-in-time theory for business. I have half an MBA. I dropped out because I had very bad morning sickness with my first child. But one of the things I learned in the MBA program is this concept is you save time in your business, but you only order parts or materials when you need it. So say you're Toyota and you're going to install the steering wheel. Well, instead of storing it in a storage house that you have to pay for, you have a car that drives up and delivers the steering wheels as you're getting ready to put it on the car. So this just-in-time kind of thing. So you can think about that for when you're teaching is, okay, well, we're going to give you the information just when you need it, not necessarily front load all of it, hope you remember it and know how to apply it when I give you a more interesting problem later. So yes, confusion should be everyone's bestie in math class. Totally, Sunil. Totally. So what we worked on yesterday was making arguments that all circles are similar. So, and I left it without an answer. Like, we had a conversation and discussion, and we used Jamboard. Like, if you single click, you take the shapes tool in Jam, and you single click, it'll make a circle, as opposed to when you drag, it makes an ellipse, which is lopsided circle. So we were practicing making some circles in Jamboard, and like, okay, we'll make several of them. Now resize them. Are they similar? What is, how do we even approach a statement like this? And just trying to teach them to think through a problem. So on Monday, we're going to revisit after they've had time to ponder it, go over it, and then we come back and revisit. And that's actually a lot more powerful than doing homework.
Yeah. Something we've been doing with Jamboard for SEL, which is social emotional learning, because of course there's a lot going on right now, pandemic. I feel like everyone's really stressed out. So we have 3 ovals. And I ordinarily would share, but I'm on my personal instead of my work. But I do have the template. So it's like 3 ovals, and they're kind of like all superimposed onto one another. The very large oval on the outside is concern, because I think that the concerns at this point are kind of outweighing anything else. So what's the concern? What's going on? Then the middle oval is influence. How do I have influence over what's going on? So how do I kind of take the concerns? Because there are a lot. Right? How do I take those concerns? And I think then what can I do to influence and change those concerns? And then in the middle is control. So I'm not a huge fan of the word control, but I do think about it, with my kids and the teachers I work with, where it's like, how can I control what's going on? What is in my immediate locus of control? So for me, and I went on a rant about it with Courtney this morning before she left. I'm not paying for any more streaming services. I'm done. I don't want Peacock. I'm not going to buy Peacock. I don't care if they put Real Housewives All Stars on Peacock. I'm not getting Peacock, and I'm not getting Discovery Plus. Right?
So I love it. I could probably spend all my time watching Discovery Plus.
See, I just can't. I can't. But that's what I can control, right? So I'm controlling not going bankrupt by all of these streaming services that people want me to get. So I can watch one show, right? I can watch TLC Unexpected and then hop off. But so when I speak to my teachers and my kids with that too, it's just something where we have our large concerns. What can we influence? And that influence circle is, I think, the best. Because then we can go to the concerns and we can say, hey, here's what I've been noticing. How can we change? What can we do? And then the control is what we can do immediately in our circles.
Yeah.
That's kind of like an SEL Jamboard.
I love that. So the circles, how are the circles arranged?
Oh, yeah. So actually, I'm going to draw.
Okay, good. Because I'm trying to, I don't know if it's because it's so early, but I just can't picture it in my brain. But I love it. I think it sounds amazing.
Let's visit here on Sunil's comment about what he learned in teacher college. So I was back in the day an NMC New Media Consortium ambassador, K-12 ambassador, and the NMC's no more, but we've been getting together. Victoria's on this.
Yes, I am.
Meetings. And so what we were talking about this week was, what do teacher prep programs traditionally not teach teachers, but really should? So my rant is, we tell everybody, you got to be data driven, but we don't have a class on spreadsheets, how to use data, what to do with a CSV file. Who knows what to do with a CSV file, right? How do grade books work? How do they calculate? How do you control your grade book versus it controlling you? Because I think for the most part, it controls us. Anytime I go and I look at a teacher's grade book, I think there's an 80% chance that it's not calculating things the way that they want to. I almost always find this isn't doing what you think, and the kids' grades are wrong. It's not something you're born knowing is how to use an electronic grade book. I know when I got started in my job this year, they printed off of the internet, here's Power School. I could have just Googled it that was my training. There's the fullness of my training for using Power School was a packet of papers printed off of the internet. They were literally websites. And so how do we help teachers to really understand data is my rant. Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to see your picture.
Yeah. Boom.
There we go.
We have control in the very middle. We have influence in the, I guess not middle, that's the second ring, right? And then concerns that are all the way on the outside. So the aim is to be like, okay, in the Jamboard, what we'll do is we'll put all of our concerns on the outside. Then we have the influence in the middle, right? How can we actually impact the concerns? And then control is all the way here. And again, I don't really like using the word control when I work with folks, but it really is control, right? So like for me, not getting Discovery Plus and not paying for Peacock, for kids, that can be okay. I can control that, if a teacher says that I need to maybe study more or, whatever, that I can take 15 minutes a night. That's something I can control. Something I can control is maybe, the quality of the work that I put through. So it's that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what it looks like on the Jamboard. Just 3 ovals: control, influence, concern.
I just love using Jamboard for things like this. That sticky note feature where we just share ideas. And then you just take one, make it bigger so you can say, hey, everybody, this one we're discussing, and then make it back smaller, sort it back on there, drag them, find things that are similar. Like a lot of people are saying this. There's some really great features of Jamboard.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I like that visual too, because honestly, in life, we don't have control over a lot. So I kind of like how it's just the small center. But the cool thing about both of you is that, Alice, you're using it for math. Victoria, you're using it for social emotional learning. I think that's such a great, what am I thinking? It's just great to see 2 ways to use it on a coffee talk.
Mm-hmm.
So important. And I want to talk about, I love this comment too from Sunil. I love this. Inclusive classroom should be inclusive of all emotions to a math problem. And I feel like we kind of just, boom, y'all both just did it. So awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I always love Sunil. He's got a lot of, if you're not following Sunil, you should. He's got some really biting things to say. Make sure you check out his blog. I'm going to see if I can. Hey, Sunil, put the link to your blog in here so that we can share it out.
And I love it. And all of you have new books coming out. So congratulations to Alice, Victoria, and Sunil for all of your new books coming out. Alice Aspinall is watching. She has a new book coming out as well. So cool. Rochelle is watching. She just had a new book come out. She's got more coming out. So cool. So many of us are writers. It's pretty amazing.
Yay.
Yeah. All right. So if I could share what I've been playing with this week. Okay, well, I'm going to put it here in the chat. We're going to check out classroom data with Schoolytics.io. Schoolytics.io, yes. So it's analytics, but with school. And apparently someone is domain squatting on the .com. So, when .com, .net, and .org and all of those are taken, you I guess use .io. So there would be the hardest one to remember. It is .io. But this is really neat. It's really fast. One of the things that I just hear complaints about all the time for Google Classroom is there's just really no reports. Like I just want a list of all the things that kids are missing. So they made that this week. There is now a missing student report, missing assignments report for students. It is free for teachers, totally free for teachers. If you want to be able to get data like across your school or across multiple teachers, that's where you'd want an organization account. And even then, it's like crazy cheap. It's like 50 cents a kid or something. But for the teachers, it is free. So if you want to get in there and see how your kids engage, it has an engagement report, shows work completion. It's just a whole bunch of really fun things that you always wanted, but just don't naturally have access to in Google Classroom. And I think you're going to really, really like it.
Cool. I'm taking notes because I've never actually seen this before. That's pretty cool.
All right. I'm trying to copy Sunil's. I can't copy and paste from the chat.
So, Alice, is Schoolytics, is it something that people are already using, or are you helping build it?
So it has been around for like a year almost. Actually came out about a year. Great timing to come out with a new company, when everyone's been pushed off the edge of the cliff with their hair set on fire. But I think in particular, this is helpful is to know if kids are engaged. Like I said, it has a student engagement report. We can have a whole debate about what engagement means. We have a student work completion or compliance report, maybe would be more accurate, but whatever.
Sure.
But just getting that information easily so I can target like which kids do I need to talk with, whose parents do I need to have a chat with, but more importantly, that I have something that I can download and give to the parents so we can have these conversations. But it's really easy to do. You just go to the schoolitics.io and you sign up with your Google account and you authorize it to connect with your Google Classrooms, and then just like boom, like that, you just have all of this lovely information that will be very useful. So I'm just really excited about this missing assignments report. I feel like every week someone complains to me that there is no missing assignments report. And I spent, oh my gosh, so many hours the other week trying to code it myself. It's not easy. Like, I have all this stuff I've coded for Google Classroom, and to get this just a list of what kids haven't turned in, I gave up. So I am so thrilled to, like, I can just stop coding it. Like, I'll use the Schoolitics, and it sends me every week an email with, hey, here's how your kids have been doing this week, the big button so I can go get more information and those missing assignments reports. So it's just really simple to use. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. It sounds like something that, is very necessary right now.
And they're working on right now it's just Google Classroom, but they're working on Canvas, and so they'll have other LMSs at some point.
Is Google Classroom still like the biggest LMS that most of the teachers in this country or internationally are using?
A great question. First, I would argue that it's not an LMS, but we won't quibble over vocabulary. Who knows what's going on right now? How many Chromebooks are there? Any data you had before the pandemic, it's not going to be reliable, right? We obviously have more devices out there. I know a lot of schools transitioned from using Google Classroom to using Canvas or Schoology, and then a lot of schools were using nothing, and now they're using Google Classroom. So I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. What's interesting, because I'll speak from the international school perspective, because I used to work at one. We couldn't use Google Classrooms because Google is blocked in some countries, like China, right? There are like different types of firewalls that are there. Sure. So that's why my school specifically used Microsoft Teams, because it didn't have that pass. My school site that I work at right now, because I'm a STEM coach. So I'm not a teacher, like I don't work with kids directly. I kind of like coach teachers on being better teachers. But we use Canvas as our LMS. Canvas and I do not have a good relationship, but we do use Canvas. And it's, it is what it is. I've used Google Classroom in the past. I've used Teams. I use Canvas. I prefer Teams, but I honestly think it might vary on like school site. And then also, of course, what folks want to get out of it. Because I view Teams as more of like a completely blended solution. I know it's not perfect, but it's got a lot of stuff. But some schools don't like to use it because it wasn't made for schools initially, right? It was made for corporate. I know. It is what it is, though. Yeah.
I like Teams. I like using it a lot. And all the platforms have some pluses and minuses. There's some things about Teams that drive me nuts. There's some things about Classroom that drive me nuts. It's been a long time since I've used Canvas and Schoology, and I had pluses and minuses with those as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just curious what LMS are you using? If you're watching, just would love to know and see, especially because we have some international friends joining us. So that would be a really cool question to explore. I know Teams, my husband uses Teams, and it's so funny because I didn't even realize that Teams was available until last year or last summer when, everything was happening. But that's what he uses. So I think the interesting part of it is that like all of these things that we're doing are so important for how students are able to perform after they leave school. So if they are, if they're great in Teams, I think that's important, if they're going to be using that in the business world. So
100%. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Google Hangout, that's a new one.
Mm-hmm.
It just used to be called Hangout. It's been rebranded to Google Meet.
Oh, okay, got it. Then I know what that is.
So cool. And speaking of, we're talking a little bit about Microsoft. So tell us some Microsoft news.
Yeah. So again, I'm Victoria Thompson, super pumped to be here today. I'm kind of the Microsoft gal. So I do a lot of stuff with them. And I'm also an NCCE learning specialist, which is a Microsoft affiliate. So that's a lot of fun too. And a lot of the work that I do in my school site and then also for other stuff is just focusing on using Microsoft tools for student innovation and also educational leadership. So I work with kids to make sure that they're empowered to make those decisions with the technology. But I do sometimes get inquiries from leadership where they're like, hey, Power BI, that's kind of cool. Let's learn more about that. So I have 4 really cool announcements. First is that there's an option right now in PowerPoint to go directly from a Word document and superimpose it into a PowerPoint, which I think is really, really cool. Time saver for teachers, time saver for leadership. Definitely check it out. I have not used it yet, but only because we are on spring break right now. So I definitely anticipate that when we return, I'll be using that feature quite a bit. Another cool one for PowerPoint is that PowerPoint Web. So this is the online version, right? Kind of like in that Office 365 cloud. They just rolled out a feature called Autofix. And this allows you to select just a bunch of misaligned shapes and align them in one click. I have played around with this a little bit. I don't really use shapes in a lot of my PowerPoint stuff. But if you do, then I think that's really cool. And that's the Autofix feature in PowerPoint. And then the last 2 kind of are going to roll into each other. If you are interested in becoming a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert, backslash, and I see Kathy here. Hey, Kathy. That's MIE Expert. So that's Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. Now is the time to begin to think about it because submissions are due June 15th, 2021 for this year. And the folks that are accepted to the cohort are going to be announced around August. So there are really 3 steps to begin to kind of think about that. And they're all within the Microsoft Educator Center, right, which is part of that Microsoft Educator community. The first is becoming a Microsoft Innovative Educator. And in order to do that, you join the Microsoft Educator Center, and that's the central hub for all things Microsoft education. Let me see if I can drop a link. Microsoft Educator Center. That way, if folks want to follow along, they can totally do it.
Idea.
And if you want to share screen, Victoria, that's fine too.
Oh, sure. Yeah, totally. Let me see. Let me get off the gossip blog that I was on this morning for the Real Housewives. All right, I'm going to share my screen. It'll be this one. Listen, the new season drops May. I'm really excited. So this is the Microsoft Educator Center that you can go through. And it's really, really neat. This is where your Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert journey is going to begin. What you do is you create an account and it's free. I highly recommend that you use a personal account because if you're like me and you did it through a school and then you move schools or districts, then everything is white. I learned the hard way, just do it through there. And Microsoft's good at combining the accounts, but then all of the other badges and stuff that I had are gone. So everything's still there. I just don't see it reflected in the transcript. So if I were you, I would just use a personal account. And with Microsoft and Gmail integration, it's really easy. So I can go to my profile, right? You'll notice that I have my Microsoft, Innovative Educator, right? I've got my Pear Deck, and I'm also an MIE Expert, which is a different badge. Where you're going to begin your journey is with the courses. So in order for you to become the first step, which is that Microsoft Innovative Educator, it's 2 hours of training via the Microsoft Educator Center. These can be any courses that you want as long as it's 2 hours. And I believe that translates to about 500 points because this is a gamified platform. So you earn badges, you take quizzes, you get points. It's pretty cool. And there's tons of cool stuff on here, but I just like to highlight some of the neat stuff that Microsoft is doing with the identity bias and the anti-racism. And as you know, I'll always get an opportunity to throw out Ken Shelton's name because he is fabulous. If you're not following Ken, what are you doing? Follow Ken. This is a tech company that has offered these types of courses. Privilege and fragility. How does my power and privilege marginalize others? Things like bias, right? How does what I think and do impact others? I mean, these are huge. And of course, they've got product stuff in here too, because of course, right? Things like Flipgrid, things like Buncee, and I'm a big Buncee fan, and I'm a Buncee ambassador. Things like coding in the Microsoft process. But what you do essentially, and I'll stop sharing, is you'll take those 2 hours worth of courses, and then it kind of starts and jumpstarts your journey. After that, what's going to happen is that you get a little bit more versed in your courses. And then once the time comes, once the application is released, then you get to be able to fill it out and talk about your journey using Microsoft products and why you consider yourself an innovator in that space. And on Alice's blog, I'm going to be doing, because I just finished a series on the Microsoft Educator Center, like a couple different courses, 5 and a bonus that I particularly liked. The next series is going to be, so you want to be an MIE expert, right? So what are the steps to get there? What is it like to apply? Playing that waiting game once July rolls around, and then we got to wait until August. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I cannot just stress enough that this is free. I don't know if I said that in the beginning, but this is a free program. So there is no expensive certifications, no expensive tests. This is truly, you use the platforms, you like the platforms. Let's learn about it and let's see what we can do to collaborate. If you are accepted into the MIE expert program, then you join a fabulous cohort and multiple cohorts really of teachers and educators and tech coaches and specialists who use these products. And we just learn from each other. We learn, we post resources. You also get invited to different types of webinars and events that might not be public facing. So they're very specific to the community. But yeah, that is my rant on Microsoft for today. And definitely take a look on Alice's blog to find out some more information.
Which I will post.
Yes.
Yeah, you have done, have you already done your 5? Did we just post the 5th one, your favorite one?
So I know that you've done 2 through 5. And then yesterday I sent over the number 1 and I also sent over the bonus.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that will be coming up this week. And yeah, so every week you have a blog to share about a course, your favorite course. That is so cool. And I didn't catch this, and I'm a little bit like, I'm not as smart as both of you, but why do you recommend using a personal email? I saw somebody ask a question because they had used their school email. So what's the importance of that?
Yeah. So for me specifically, and I'm just speaking from my experience right now, because when I started the MIE expert program, I was working full-time in tech. I had a Microsoft Outlook account. Then I moved to go back to schools and be kind of like a math curriculum writer, tech person, and I taught a couple classes. So even though I was MIE expert when I applied, that didn't transfer over to my new account. So I had to contact and be like, hey, like I'm still part of this community. Is there a way to transfer it over? But because I wasn't using that email, it was kind of difficult to do that. So I got everything transferred over to my school email. Then when I moved from school to my new job, which also has an Outlook, I was just thinking, oh, I just don't want to do this again, right? Because when I moved from my job to my other job, even though my points were still there, even though the certificate was still there, all of the badges were lost. So it was really difficult for folks, especially applying for the MIE expert program. They're like, okay, so you've got like 50,000 points, but there's nothing on your transcript, right? And like, we know that you've taken the courses here, but we can't see anything. So thankfully, I already had the backup with the screenshots and whatnot, just in case. But if you use a school email and if you move from place to place, it will not transfer because remember, when you move schools or if you move workplaces, that information is deleted. So I always recommend taking a look first at your personal. And again, if you've got Gmail, there's easy transfer. So I use a Gmail for my Microsoft Innovative Expert, like everything. And I have no issue there. I wouldn't really recommend using a school email, especially if you don't plan on staying long term.
Well, don't say that. Don't say you don't plan to. Life is crazy.
Right.
You never, which is why I recommend that you really should never use your school email, with the exceptions of, I'm signing up for Schoolitics and I want to get my data to do something with my class right now. But if I'm going to have any kind of an account or I want people to ever contact me, I try not to use my school account because you just never know.
Right. Another thing too to consider, and Alice, you kind of touched on it, is that privacy aspect, right? So some schools do have kind of these rules surrounding, okay, what can you use your email for? What can't you use your email for? I know in my workplace, so like if I have work tech, there's my dog. Ren, you come in and say hi and be part of the stream? He's like, oh yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
I like his new outfit. Hi, Ren.
But so like for my school specifically, there are some certain parameters about what you can use the tech for and what you can't, right? So if I were to be using my stuff for the MIE expert, then there could be some repercussions there. So I'm just really careful about what I use my personal versus my work for. So that's why. And then also too, for privacy and security, right? If you're doing something through, any other platform, and if they contact your school, then technically that might get put into the school roster. Like I have a million billion stories about times where a teacher signs up for a service.
You don't.
Right. Like a teacher signs up for a service and suddenly we all have it in our inbox. And I'm like, wait, where did this come from? But it comes from giving school information. And it's just good to not have folks be liable. So personal email always. If you have a Gmail, you can still use it. If not, you can create an Outlook account. It is completely free. And that's how you can use the Microsoft Education Center and become an MIT.
About this. Yeah, like I don't know that all of that information is like known by all of us. So I'm glad that we touched on that. Thank you.
Yeah,
both
definitely.
of you for sharing your wisdom.
Yeah. And I also see one from Ms. Rocky in the comments. I can transfer the points. You can. It does take a little bit of time. So I would say when I was like job, and I had to transfer every time, it probably took about 2 weeks start to finish because you contact the educator center directly. They put you in contact with somebody that can help. You do have to verify email, just kind of the different types of things that you've done. But yeah, if you are just starting and you're kind of trying to transfer, you can totally do that. It does take a bit of time, but I would consider it to be worth it because then your projects and, everything that you've worked on, they're not lost.
Yeah. Love it.
Good suggestion.
Love it so much. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
And Miss Rocky is very grateful, she says, so.
Yay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so we didn't talk about this before we went on, but we are actually going to be together again, not next weekend. Hopefully, we're going to all be together in a couple of weeks. And you were talking about Ken Shelton. We're going to have a courageous conversation.
We are.
Yes.
We are.
So that's
right.
Yeah, we're changing it. I haven't heard from Holly. So Holly, if you're watching this,
I thought she was okay.
She did? Okay, and I didn't see it. But yeah, so it's going to be on the 25th, and it's weird, Victoria, being on here without Eileen, Dr. Eileen Winokur. It's so weird. Like I feel like one of us is missing. But we will be back together, and then of course we have the amazing Ken Shelton, like you said. Alice will be here, and we're going to be streaming through all of her platforms. So hopefully that will give us even a greater audience. And then Holly Clark will be with us. Am I missing somebody?
Nope, it's me, you, Alice, Dr. Eileen, and Ken. Oh, and Holly. Did I say Holly?
Yeah, one of us did.
Yeah, that's all of us.
So look for that in a couple of weeks. We'll be streaming through Alice's platform, and we're going to have another courageous conversation about, and it's going to be like a really personal. I'm looking forward to this episode because it's going to be so personal to all three leaders that, you all are like all over social media. People look up to you. So it's going to be so cool to hear about how things are, changing and growing you. And I'm singing all this. Yes. Thank you, Miss Rocky.
Yes. Thank you.
This was really cool. Yeah. Is there any, and Alice, how was and I wanted to make sure I touched on this. How was your Desmos webinars? How are they coming? I started a couple weeks ago.
The first Desmos, I have the Desmos workshop going on right now. And then I'm doing a weekly webinar to go with it. And the first one went awesome. I'll drop the link in here for the,
awesome.
Let me get it on YouTube. I actually have it. It is unlisted because this is for the webinar series for those who are in the workshop, but I will be happy to drop it here for those of you who are watching. It is, I just got to let it load. You know how it goes.
Victoria, do you use Desmos?
I do. However, I use it a little bit less right now. So most of the classrooms that I support are grades 6 through 8. So they're not really using Desmos besides things like linear functions and maybe the occasional quadratic in the 8th grade class. We do have a very specific math platform that my school uses. But it's basically like, it's almost like they scan the PDF version of the textbook, and which is like a big pet peeve of mine. And they're like, here you go. So I am working with them on creative math solutions, and Desmos is becoming to be a part of that. We're also a big geo.
For a second though, because for grades 6 through 8, the illustrative math curriculum, they have taken and put all these supplemental, wonderful, genius things for grade 6 through 8 through illustrative math. Now that is not free. That is per student curriculum, really specific to that. But Desmos itself is free, and you can use it for really all grade levels. Tim Brzezinski has been knocking out all these cool things on
GeoGebra
videos and really getting down into the lower grade levels. Teacher.desmos.com is a game changer.
You know, when you guys were talking earlier about things that should be in the teacher program that aren't, and I was like, Victoria, like I went through I was an unpaid intern. Like I understand, like we were totally get that. It was awful. Actually, I was so poor and I was still working full time and obviously teaching full time. It was horrible. But I think that the way they teach math, they teach us to teach math also has got to drastically change. And I don't know, like I wish that we could talk to some new teachers, like our pre-service teachers that are going through the programs, because I wonder how different is it. And Victoria, you're the youngest here. Like were they when you were going through the program, were they doing well in math? Because I can tell you that the things that I learned were completely antiquated.
I think there's a big difference in elementary versus high school training.
Yeah, I'll use this as an opportunity for a plug. So in our private chat, I put a document. My friend Alicia Sewell and I, and she's based out of Alabama. She is a professional learning specialist. I'm an instructional coach. We are having a pre-service teacher chat this Tuesday. So that's going to be 4 p.m. PST, which is 6 p.m. CST and 7 p.m. EST. It is geared towards all of this type of conversation. So if you're not a pre-service teacher, if you're not a new teacher, please come. We want to just talk about exactly this, right? What did you get in your pre-service program? What did you not get? Did you do an alt cert? What did you do? And what would you like to see improve? Because she and I both work with pre-service teachers, and it is a little rough out there. We're finding that as consultants and also as learning specialists, that a lot of the rhetoric surrounding education, specifically math education, is still that textbook stuff. It's not as innovative as we think that it should be. And there's not a lot of focus on the practice and the number sense and the pedagogy. It's more like, okay, if they're in 3rd grade, here's what they expect. If it's 4th grade, here's what they expect. And with all due respect to my undergrad alma mater, which I love, my wife and I started a scholarship there, so we have no hard feelings, but the 2 math courses that I took regarding just kind of how to teach mathematics, it was kind of rooted in that kind of like number sense, but like changing bases. And as much as that's important, that's not the only part of number sense. And then also, just like the Common Core, like understanding the standards, math education is more than understanding the standards. Math education is, how do I actually put this into practice? And how do I, as a student, conceptually understand what's in front of me? And this even extends to word problems. Like I do, or I use Immersive Reader with word problems, which I know I wrote about on Alice's blog. And I mean, it has been revolutionary for my teachers and my students because we're decoding, right? So actually, I might be able to bring something up. I
just want to mention.
Yeah, sure.
When we talk about the standards, not only do we think of what the standards are, which might be use the standard algorithm for division, but it is in conjunction with the 8 mathematical practices. The 8 mathematical practices are the standards. If your students are not doing the 8 mathematical practices, you are absolutely not teaching the standards. You are
right.
Not. And I know for a fact that is not communicated most places.
Correct.
I talk to a lot of people who don't even know what they are.
What are the 8 mathematical practices?
Oh, they're the best.
Where can we find them?
Here well, I'll grab them. I have it on my blog.
We need to have a talk where we talk with all these people that love math. I love being surrounded by people that love math because they just give me this like vision of what math could be. And like it is so hard. As soon as you said the division algorithm, I'm like, I'm so freaking over it.
It's the house, right?
Over it. Every single year, including my own kids, the struggle is so freaking real. And
it really is.
It kills that love. Like you can have kids that love math until they get to that algorithm. I didn't understand it the first couple of years I was trying to learn it too. But I feel like we put so many, I'm going to cuss, but we put so many damn walls up when we're teaching math that like we're killing our students' love, that natural love of numbers. They come into school with it. And then we put all these crazy walls up and I hate them over it.
There have been studies that have been done where students...
Sorry.
Oh, no, Alice, go ahead.
Something bold. It doesn't matter if we crank stuff into kids' heads. If they don't use it, they can't apply it. And especially if they don't love it. If after our lesson, they like math less, we have absolutely failed. So really looking at what passion have I driven for students around mathematical inquiry today? That's a question we have to ask. I have put the 8 mathematical practices, the link in here. I'm going to read them really quickly. Make sense of problem solving and persevere in problem solving. That's not do a math problem, then do another one just like it, and then do another one just like it. It is building on ideas to understand if it makes sense, to reason abstractly and quantitatively, to construct viable arguments. And this is like my favorite one, critique the reasoning of others. We're asking students to be thinkers of the math, not doers of the math, that they model with mathematics, that they use appropriate tools strategically, attend to precision, and look for and make use of structure. And last but not least, look for and express regularity in repeated reasoning. So I would like to quote U Cubed that says, math is about pattern finding. Math is about pattern finding. So I'll just sum up all 8 of those into that one phrase. Math is about pattern finding. That is a little bit overly simplified, but it's asking kids, what do you think? What do you notice? How else can you do this? Not, hey, can you replace a Google search? Could you be a replacement for PhotoMath? That died in the 1990s. We have to embrace.
Are you sure it died?
Yes. Its practicality died.
I know, but I don't know and you know what I'm saying. The way that we teach it is not the way.
Let's not blame teachers. The way that the textbooks continue to present math is oftentimes completely oblivious to the fact that the world has radically changed, that you don't need to have kids compete with calculators.
And I think too, to Melody's point, they learned this also from teacher prep programs, right?
And that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, like my teacher prep programs, the 2 classes that I had, with all due respect to my college, my math education courses were not great. And if I think even further, because while y'all were talking, I was like, how many years did my professors actually spend teaching in the classroom, right? / were they still teaching at the time? Because I have had professors, and I feel like the best professors I've had were still teaching K-12 and were adjuncts in college because they had their ear to the ground, right? And they were actually able to find out more about it. Versus, the math professors that I had, like one actually works for Amazon right now. So she's off doing something else. There's another one and she's still there, but she like heads like a different program. So she's not even in the math education department anymore, right? They had only taught for 2 years. And not that teaching for 2 years and then moving on is necessarily a bad thing, but they didn't stay current with what was going on.
Exactly.
That's my biggest concern, especially after all this. Our teacher prep program is going to start thinking like, what do we do when kids aren't in school? How do we make sure they're technologically proficient that if something happens that we can't go back to school, or even just thinking about what did work? Lots of things did work that we've been doing this last year that should continue, that we should do things differently. My daughter's student teacher this year, my daughter's in Algebra 1, was being taught to have the kids fill out a workbook. So there's a workbook and there's blank lines. They fill it out and then do a bunch of math problems that were the same kind of math problems I did in 1900. And that's what we're teaching a new student teacher. And so that is a teacher prep program saying, this is the kind of guidance we're going to give you. None of it that I saw my daughter doing was mathematical mindsets, was the 8 mathematical practices. And that's what that person was being taught.
Yeah. And I want thank you for saying that, Victoria, because I definitely never want to like put blame on teachers, because I can honestly say that I am a math teacher and I don't feel like I know how to teach it well. Whenever I talk with Alice, whenever I talk with Sunil, or even you, and I talk to these people, Alice Aspinall too, like when I talk with these people that love math and see math in a different way than I can, I'm always like, how do I flip my mind over there? How do I get that? Because that's what I want my kids to see. But just like you, and I loved where I got my teacher education. I loved it. But the way they teach math is complete. The struggle is
historic.
Yeah, it's across the board. And I love that you said yes, because those professors aren't always in the classroom for very long or in it at all. So their relevancy to it is just,
Definitely. Yeah. I just want to, again, that plug for the pre-service teacher chat. If you're interested, please join. Me and my friend Alicia Sewell are putting it on. It'll be this Thursday, 4 p.m. PST, 7 p.m. EST, 6 p.m. CST, if I'm remembering correctly, my time zone. But we are going to be talking about this, right? Just what did we learn in our pre-service teacher programs? Did it work? Did it not work? How does that kind of influence our instruction? Kind of what we wish we knew before entering the profession, and also how that could have influenced what happened during the program.
Yes, and that is great. So that's coming up next Thursday, and we'll definitely get more information out about that, because that is such an important topic. So thank you for sharing with us about that. So I like this question, and we're getting close to our time being over. How do our state mandated factor? I have felt such a freedom in my teaching and exploring new practices being released from the EOC this year.
We just did state testing this week, and obviously I won't talk about anything that was on it, but I'm frankly horrified that that's what the state of Kansas cares that kids can do. I guarantee you, if we were to give this test to all the Kansas administrators, or not administrators, politicians, they would fail it miserably. None of those were anything that I don't want to say none. Walking around, I didn't see a whole lot of things that were applicable. That, like, who cares if you can do that?
Yeah,
yep, the dog around here.
We haven't done state testing yet here in Washington. I believe that ours are going out in May. But I also come from, I taught public in South Carolina for 4 years, where we had state mandated tests. But when I was in Washington, I taught at when I was in Washington, I was at an independent school where we didn't have state tests. I did find it very liberating and freeing to not have that as part of the curriculum, but we were an IB school. So that also, we had IB tests, we just didn't have state tests or things like that. Now I feel like in Washington, where a lot of my emphasis has been, and also when I'm working with my teachers, is that the test just assesses the content knowledge. Now, how well it does it is a bit of a different story, but it doesn't really tell you how you're supposed to teach the math content or how you're supposed to teach the ELA content. It's just, so for example, in Washington, in my district, there are 13 standards, and those 13 standards might have been truncated to 5 or 6 because of the pandemic and the rollover from last year and blah, blah, blah. So if you've got a year to cover 6 standards, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. And even if you are expected to teach this one lesson or have this one assessment, think about only teaching 6 standards for 8 or 9 months. That's a lot of time for you to do a lot of stuff. So that's kind of that growth mindset shift that I'm trying to let them have. Yes, it does stuff that we're doing testing this year, and we probably shouldn't be doing it. But because you've only covered 6 over the course of this time, then we have a little bit more leeway to be creative.
Yeah. And so thank you for sharing that. And so did Tim share an activity that, go ahead.
If you teach less content at a deeper level, the research shows that the kids do better than if you just cover, because we know covering is not teaching. If they didn't learn it and they really don't understand it, how are they going to ultimately do anyway?
Right.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. Can you believe that we've talked for an hour?
I can believe it because I love talking with y'all. I always have a lot of fun.
That was fun.
Me too. I'm not gonna lie though, it's hard to like keep up with your all's conversation. Sometimes you're all just too smarty pants for me, and it's still early, so I'm like, I'm listening hard. Like, okay, yes, this makes sense. This makes sense. No, I love it. I love when you guys get excited, and especially when you talk about the things that really drive you. It's good to hear. And we talked a lot of truth this morning, especially about, you know, the education and math. And I love that you're going to have a talk about that coming up on Thursday. I'm going to try to find that link again.
Tuesday. Yeah, so it'll be this Tuesday, which is the 13th.
Thursday. Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be Tuesday, which is the 13th. Oh yeah, and I see the chat, the link in the chat, so that's perfect.
You want to do a small blog post for me to put out tomorrow so we can?
Yeah, sure.
So
yeah, Courtney's not here. My wife isn't here, so I should have a very productive day with just me and my dog. So I'll be able to totally get that done. But yeah, y'all, please join us. We're going to be talking again. What did we go through during our pre-service programs or our alt-cert programs? How do we wish we saw different types of education? What's innovative happening in schools right now that we were not seeing in pre-service teaching programs? You know, grab a snack, grab a beverage, grab your dog, and just come chat. It's going to be a free-form chat similar to this one. And we do have a couple questions that we're going to address, like, you know, that were kind of submitted through a form, but everything else, it's just kind of questions on the go, and we'll just have a cool talk and then hopefully use that for actionable solutions moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So it's going to be like a live chat. That is so cool.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Awesome. And in a couple of weeks, we'll be together again with a few of our friends. We're going to have a great, courageous conversation in ed tech. It's going to be a personal one. Mel asks, though, will it be on YouTube or Twitter?
So what I'm going to do is we'll have a live link that I will post. So once you sign up via the chat, then you'll get it from me. And then it'll kind of be like StreamYard-y live. So if you're just joining later, then you can, you know, hop on. It'll be posted to Twitter. But yeah.
Right. And if you're on Twitter and you're not following Victoria the Tech, make sure you are so that you can keep current with all of that. Yes. Yeah. I'm sure most people are. Like, who wouldn't be following you? So
thank you.
And Alice, before we go, do you have any last words that you would like to impart?
What are you putting me on the spot for? Eat waffles. That's what I had for breakfast.
Yes. If I liked waffles, I would. So cool. Mel, I'm so glad that you joined us. For everybody who joined us, whether it was on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, we're so glad you joined us. We had a lot of great conversation today. You know, we're trying to do this every other weekend. It's just with the holidays, sometimes it gets a little messed up, but we are so glad and thankful for everyone who participated today, and we will see you again soon. Victoria, thank you for joining us, and we hope that everybody has a great weekend and a great week. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.